Welcome back, everyone. We're about to kick off the final half of the Sydney Dialogue for today, and our next discussion is a very special session on Ukraine. More than a year has passed since Russia's illegal and immoral invasion of Ukraine. This session will reflect on the lessons that have come from the conflict. Can you please join me in welcoming to the stage Dr. Yuriy, advisor to the Ukrainian Minister for Defence, who will be providing some opening remarks. Following Dr. Yuriy, we'll also welcome our moderator and panellists for the session, Beck Shrimpton, the Director of the Sydney Dialogue at ASPI, Biber Bratza, NATO Assistant Secretary-General for Public Diplomacy, His Excellency Vasyl Miroshnichenko, the Ambassador of Ukraine to Australia, Palmer Luckey, the founder of Andural Industries, and former Australian Army Major General Mick Ryan. Welcome, Dr. Yuriy.
So more than 13 months. I've been now in Australia, traveling from one city to another with my colleagues from the Ministry of Defence of Ukraine for a bit more than 2 weeks. And as we see the cities of Australia, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, we tell each other, do you know what it reminds us of? It reminds us of Ukraine 13 months ago. It reminds us of our country, which is creative, gifted, talented, peaceful. And 13 months ago, we lost all that. We've just come back from a meeting which was taking place at the Sydney Cricket Ground, a beautiful place. But as soon as we walked in, I realized that the first news that I read today in the morning as I woke up was the news of Maxim Galichin, a 22-year-old gold medal winning boxer from Ukraine who was killed on March 10th and who was awarded yesterday the Star of Hero by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. You will hear from Ukraine's ambassador, Vasyl Miroshnichenko, in a moment, and I and him, we come from the same alma mater, from the Kyiv Institute of International Relations. During the first 2 weeks of the war, 2 of Vasyl's classmates were killed. And this is what is happening on a daily basis. Another colleague of mine who is sitting right in front of me here, before the war, he was one of the co-founders of a very sophisticated DNA startup. 2 other co-founders were brilliant scientists. Between ourselves, we used to say that one of these guys, his name is Bijon Sharipov, that when there will be a day when he will make a discovery for humankind in the realm of DNA. And then 3 months ago, his body was found in the trenches in the eastern front of Ukraine, and it was identified by DNA sampling. Now that's not normal. That is not normal. Every Uber driver who I've met here in this country and in this city, when we say goodbye to each other, they wish us kick the Russians, beat the Russians. Everybody we meet everywhere in every country want Ukraine to prevail and win. And look, today one of the most frequent questions that I get as somebody who's responsible for strategic communications within the Ministry of Defence of Ukraine is, when is the counteroffensive going to begin? Think about it. We are talking about Ukraine's counteroffensive. 13 months ago, even our close allies were doubtful if we would withstand 3 to 7 days of this onslaught, of this aggressive invasion. We're still standing, we're still fighting. Now, one of the most important things to understand, and which is something that sets apart this tragic genocidal war from the ones that we have witnessed in the recent couple of decades is that we are not asking our allies to fight for us. We are not asking to send in the troops. We're just saying, give us the tools. When the war began, we had ammunition supplies and weapons for a very, very short time, and we had to act fast. After that, a Ramstein format was initiated by the US, and now over 50 countries participate in these regular monthly meetings, and the supply of military assistance is continuous, and we are now talking about a counter-offensive, which means that we are determined, ready, and capable of achieving victory with the help of our allies. I want to use this opportunity being here to thank the Australian people and the Australian government for standing with Ukraine since day one of this large-scale invasion. The Australian Bushmasters have become a household name in Ukraine. You ask anyone in Ukraine, you know, what they associate Australia with, they will tell you it's Bushmasters. You know, not kangaroos, not koalas. I mean, look, when I was a kid, visiting Australia was one of my dreams. And I wanted to come to Australia to see kangaroos and koalas. But tomorrow I'll be going to Bendigo, and now I want to see Bushmasters and the Hawkeyes. And trust me, I wish I was on a different mission in this beautiful, friendly country that has been supportive of Ukraine so strongly. And this is why one of the things that we keep telling our friends, everybody we meet here, is Australia, during the first period of the war, was the largest contributor to Ukraine's support outside of NATO. It's a very proud title, which I'm sure every Australian aspires to keep and maintain. And Australia, we invite Australia to join the International Tank Coalition, because tanks for Ukraine are tanks for freedom. We are not fighting for some random small cities of Bakhmut, Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, Avdiivka, Marinka, the cities that have been obliterated, decimated, pulverized. They are uninhabitable. They're not cities that we will be able to reconstruct. They will have to be built from scratch. But this is not about just our territory or our people. This is about the global freedom. This is why whenever our president addresses the international audience, our Minister of Defense, we say that, look, de facto we are already a member of NATO alliance because we are protecting the eastern flank of NATO with what we have. And we are doing everything we can to transform our army using NATO standards, using NATO modern weaponry. And the technological advances that we have seen during the last 13 months, which is the main theme of this conference and this session in particular, have been very impressive. I'm sure you have seen how Ukrainians invent new types of weapons. They shoot down Iranian drones with with what we can, and it shouldn't be that way. That's why we're inviting our allies to, I hope it doesn't sound cynical, but right now Ukraine is a very unique testing ground, which will allow us to improve the weapon system that we receive, to share that knowledge with our allies, and make sure that Ukraine and all other countries are better protected from, for example, from the Iranian drones in the future. Because Iranian drones have not been created for Ukraine by Iran. You all know who they were created for originally, right? So it only makes sense, and it is logical, that we should all be interested in finding ways to how to jam them, to how to improve the electronic warfare equipment that will allow us all to be protected from this type of weaponry. Now, Ukrainian government is taking the technological aspect of this war, and this is a very weird war, by the way, and I'm sure you know this. On the one hand, you see images and video footage of Russians taking off tanks from the monuments, right? Like 70 years ago, they've been put their T-34s, for example. On the other hand, it's a war of drones. So as a government, we are investing heavily, for example, into the drone industry. Right now, our Ministry of Defense is already partnering with over 60 productions and manufacturers of drones in Ukraine. I mean, quite honestly, I don't think there's any one self-respecting businessman in Ukraine who doesn't have a drone manufacturing facility right now. When the time comes, of course, we will be happy to share the knowledge that we gain on the battlefield with our allies, with our friends. Within the Ministry of Defense, very recently, a new position and a new department was set up that will deal specifically with technological advances. It will be about digital transformation of the Ukrainian armed forces, about digital development, about integrating Ukraine into the NATO logistical procurement systems, about making sure that every invention and every investment in every Miltech startup in Ukraine results in saving lives of our soldiers, results in increasing our capacity and our defense capability. Just so that you understand, for example, thanks to the use of the so-called Delta system, I won't go into detail because I don't have time. I don't have time at all by now, but we are able to, for example, instead of shooting 10 artillery shells, we can just achieve our goals by 1. And that's because the data that is collected, assembled by the new software. So thank you very much. Stand with Ukraine. This is a war that we will definitely win. We are confident it can be achieved this year in 2023. We have seen it's possible. You have seen it's possible. Let's just do it.